The dawn of a new consumer era. In Asia, the numbers speak for themselves. A burgeoning middle class by 2030. The amount they're expected to splurge. Who are the big spenders? The rising affluent, the active seniors, the exciting millennials. Habits are also changing. Tastes more sophisticated. Shopping has become easier, quicker, more informed. What do these consumers want? How can companies take shots and still score by a comfortable margin? What does it take to win this competitive retail game in a challenging economic environment? This week on CNBC Managing Asia, we bring you a special panel discussion from the recent Singapore summit with some of Asia's biggest players. Daniel Zhang, CEO of Alibaba Group, Kunal Bal, co-founder and CEO of Snapdeal, Majeswaran Suranjan, Asia-Pacific President of Procter & Gamble, and Malina Ngai, COO of AS Watson Group. A warm welcome to my distinguished panel here this afternoon at the Singapore Summit. Malina, let's start with you first. You're part of Watsons, the world's biggest health and beauty retailer. You're in charge of the digital efforts. What sort of e-commerce platform are you trying to build here to complement the whole brick and mortar business of Watson?
Well, first of all, in AS Watson, digital is just part of our growth strategy. It's not an isolated strategy in itself. Currently, we have 12,000 stores in Asia and Europe, and every year we're opening another 1,300. So to get that physical penetration into the market and get in front of the customers is very key to our strategy. And secondly, is our CRM strategy. We are tracking very closely on the trending in our physical store as well as online. And in our physical store, we continue to still get top-line growth. We still have increase in terms of conversion and traffic in some of in our stores. At the same time, once we provide digital and e-commerce online, we are seeing that actually our customers, they are spending more with us. For example, in China, they're actually spending 2.8 times more if they shop with us online, offline, versus those who only shop with us in the store. And overall in Asia, they are spending double more.
Daniel, Alibaba is an e-commerce household name over in China. This is a market where it's trying to transform itself from an export-led economy into a one led by consumption, domestic consumption. What insights can you tell us about the Chinese consumer and their online spending habits?
Chinese consumer actually in the process of, we call the consumption upgrading. And the people are basically changing their lifestyle. People use smartphones for online shopping, and people want higher quality products and high quality services. And so that's why in Alibaba, we do a lot of job to introduce the overseas merchants, overseas products, services to Chinese consumers. And we're also trying to add more categories like travel, like digital entertainment contents. But we are very happy and to see that young people now enjoying a very unique transformation, which is they want to discover a lot of fun in the online shopping, and they want to try something new. So that's why we try to introduce, for example, to have our first wine festival last week in China, and we got the wine producers from Italy, from Australia, everywhere in the world, and people, they can see the video or live streaming, what happened and how the farm looked like in Australia and in Italy, etc. Then people enjoy the shopping.
You're the architect behind Singles Day, an annual shopping event on November 11, which has been described as the world's biggest online shopping phenomenon. How did you come up with the idea, and why has it been so successful?
Well, the reason why we create this actually is only for one thing. It's for survival. Because this shopping festival, for the first time in 2009, we started to do this. At that time, I running the Tmall business. This is a new business. We want people to remember this new brand. So I said to my team, okay, if in the US people have a Black Friday, at that time even no Cyber Monday, only Black Friday. I said, why not we have our own Black Friday in China? So then we try to select a day and a month to do this.
How do you expect to do this November 11th?
Every year we try new things, and we have had a lot of
So this year, what are you trying?
Well, actually, so far we're preparing this. This is top secret. I won't disclose at this moment. I want to give people more surprise. Last year, actually, we have on our platform, on that particular day, we generate over 14.3 billion GMV sales on that day in 24 hours. But this year, I think, actually, we will add more and more features, not only for shopping, but also for a lot of funds and with new technologies.
Well, Alibaba and of course Snap, there's something in common. Last year, Kunal, Alibaba bought a stake in your company. You're essentially trying to create a marketplace similar to Alibaba. Are you trying to be the Alibaba of India?
I think that would be a big compliment if we get there. But obviously the journey is long and we just got started a few years ago. So we're a lot ahead of us.
What insights can you give us about the way the Indian consumer is thinking and how they're spending online? How different is it from the other markets?
In India, about 70% of our GDP is consumption. So about 1.4 trillion is consumption. Less than 1% of it is online today. In 10 years from now, we expect this consumption to go to 3.5 trillion, at which point in time, at least 7 to 10% should be online. So my view is that in 10 years from now, this $10 billion of online consumption could jump to $300 billion of online consumption.
Okay, when you say online, a lot of it is conducted on mobile devices. Am I correct?
Absolutely. So for us, 80% of our orders, visits are on mobile now. And to put it in context, 3 years ago, this number was less than 5%.
Just how complex is the Indian market? Because we know, and we had a brief chat before this, that it's not as homogeneous as a lot of people think it is. What are some of the complexities in the Indian market itself?
I would say India is probably the most heterogeneous market out there, where it seems like there are many countries inside one country. We have thousands of
different languages as well?
Yeah, we have thousands of languages, 18 national languages. If you think about today, most of the online buyers in India are English speakers or people who understand English. But the total of that number of people is maybe 125 to 150 million. But e-commerce in India will reach its potential only when we have 300, 400, 500 people buying online, which means that the next wave of buyers will have to come from parts of the country where English is not spoken. So we are the only platform that actually recreated our platform in 8 different languages.
Why haven't you not tapped into the rural areas? Is it because logistics, distribution, transportation is a key challenge there already?
Yeah, I think the best analogy I can give is I think Indian e-commerce is where China e-commerce was in 2007, 2008. So we are about 8 years behind, but it's not going to take us 8 years to bridge the gap. It's probably going to take us 4 years, partly because of all the 4G expansion that's happening in India right now with many new players coming in and prices going down by almost 70%. That's going to drive it. Secondly, while everyone does believe infrastructure in India is not as great, but it's also a great opportunity for companies like ours. Because if we can build the infrastructure on which us and our sellers can ride on, it also proves to be a great differentiator. Because here, something we spoke about earlier, it's very clear that consumers in Asia want best-in-class service. And it's up to us as companies to figure out how do we make the economics work. They don't want emerging market service. They want developed market service, but at emerging market prices. And we have to figure out how do we deliver that.
How many apps do they actually have on their handphone? And do you have to fight to be on that app on the handphone for them to consider you?
Yeah, absolutely. So India has maybe about 100 to 150 million smartphone users who have data, and maybe 200, 250 million people with smartphones, but 100 million of them don't have a data connection yet. But a lot of people who have smartphones in India have relatively cheap smartphones. And unlike the souped up phones we all have, where we can have 100 apps, they can't have more than 10 apps or 15 apps or 20 apps. And they'll probably not have more than 1 or 2 e-commerce apps. So you have to fight hard to make sure that you're a one-stop shop, that consumers absolutely have your app, even if they don't have anyone else's app.
You have to be on that handphone no matter what.
Absolutely.
Because if not, you're out of the game.
Yes.
Okay. So, and it's interesting because you work for one of the world's largest consumer goods company. Walmart is your biggest customer. Are you doing anything within P&G to reach the consumers directly?
At the end of the day, our strategy is to make sure we're available, we serve our consumers wherever they shop. Clearly, we're all in on the online side. We don't see a reason to necessarily go direct to consumer when you've got amazing capabilities like Daniel and Kunal developing it. We believe our strategy is to work through them to reach our consumers. On the brick and mortar side, as Malina pointed out, there's some interesting dynamics that are happening that are to watch and perhaps leverage. And in some markets, we're seeing what we call the small box stores, the mini market, CVS, open a store a day. In Indonesia, that's the case, and only to be outrun by the competition who's doing it across the street. The other interesting dynamic is golden age. In one of my markets, we got the 50 plus have got almost 50% of the spending power. And how they interact with Daniel and Kunal will be interesting to watch. The third area in the consumer products arena is the Asian consumer is generally more on the sensorial expressive side.
Can you elaborate?
Yes. The products, the brands have to have a certain richness in perfumes, more so than what I would have in the West. The packaging has to be much more vibrant than what we would have in the West.
You mean we're that demanding?
Indeed, indeed. And so that's the consumer profile, and that's who we're serving. And how the online arena deals with these three vectors, among others, will be interesting to watch.
So you wouldn't take a product packaged in the US to bring it to Asia?
I wouldn't say that would be a blanket opportunity like that. Some products do work, but generally, the products that are most successful in the Asian market, especially the ASEAN markets, are the ones on the right side of the sensorial spectrum.
Have you created a product specifically for the Asian consumer and only for the Asian consumer?
Yeah, a few. One of my favorite brands would be SK2, and that was created here for the Asian consumer. When we look at some of our shampoos, there are some that are just uniquely Asian with the texture that is required.
I think this is very, very crucial for the whole Asian market, because we are dealing with a lot of manufacturers who sometimes don't understand Asia enough, don't understand the vibrancy. And to start with, in Asia, we have a lot more younger customers. If you look at the millennials, that is population in the world, over 60% of them are actually in Asia. And in our business, 72% of them are under the age of 35. And now when we look at our business and growth strategy, we actually have to we segment them by generation. So we actually then have to still have to break down the younger group into Gen Y and Gen Z. And over 72% of our business in Asia are coming from this very young generation. So how can we understand them more in order to actually acquire more customers?
And how do you actually understand them more? I'm trying to understand them myself. What exactly appeals to these group of new spenders?
This generation is much more digitally connected. And probably thanks to a lot of parents in this room, they are much more willing to spend. They don't have to think about savings. They would want to look at products that is different, because this is something they can share on social media. And more the younger generation are also looking at brands and companies that are socially responsible.
Our brands run on a certain cycle and a certain model, and driving trial is an important aspect of any brand's growth model. And as we look at some of the programs, targeting university folks for Gillette just before they get their first job, Head and Shoulders as you buy your first suit, so you don't have dandruff on your suit. So these are all insights that we have to mine as we try to target this group, and then they hopefully become repeat purchasers of these brands.
Don't go away. Up next,
I used to keep saying Indian consumers are all about ABCD: astrology, Bollywood, cricket, and discounts.
We used to make 5 years business plan, and now it's 3 years. And now actually every quarter we are reviewing the plan.
Managing Asia will be right back. Let's talk more about this ecosystem that Alibaba is trying to build here, because you're big in China and you're trying to bring the world to China, literally because the consumer market there is so big. But at the same time, you're making a lot of mergers and acquisitions. For instance, you invested in Snapdeal. What exactly is your acquisition strategy here? Is it simply to grow outside of China so you don't miss out on the growth there as well?
Well, actually, our investment strategy are very clear. First, we invest in the company who can bring us more customers. Again, customer first. For example, we invest the #1 Android-based mobile browser called UC Web. They are #1 mobile browser in China, in India, and Indonesia. And we invest in this company actually 4 years ago. And this gives us an incremental customer base, and especially in the mobile world. And second, our investment strategy focuses on enhancing service. So that's why we invest in our logistics ecosystem, in a couple of our core partners in last mile delivery, in warehousing, and to improve the service experience. Next one is about the global expansion. We've, like our recent investment in Lazada, and head office in Singapore, and covering 6 countries in Southeast Asia, and with total population over 5-6 million people. So we think this is a very important move for us to enter into this market and give us a lot of local experience and covering more areas.
What are you buying next?
Well, actually we cannot keep buying, but we buy the right thing, but we don't want to keep buying.
Are you happy with the stake you bought into Snapdeal?
Well, it's very important investment. Actually, we are one of the investors in Snapdeal. I think India is a very, very important market. And via this investment, we get a lot of experience. And our global strategy is that we want to help the local young people to win, instead of we jump into the water and do everything by ourselves. Because in different countries, there are different landscape and different consumer insights.
So no plans to enter India directly yourself?
Well, yes. Actually, for us, as we always do, actually, for India, for all the countries, we want to partner with the local players and to help them to win in their market.
Was that Snapdeal and Alibaba, would both of you even consider going into that offline experience, or would you just stay online forever?
Well, I would say, actually, at the end of the day, online and offline should be fully integrated.
Yes.
And Alibaba start with online, but we do a lot of exercise with our offline partners. Actually, back to our investment strategy, actually, in the last 2 years, we invest in Suning, the biggest the electronic chains in China, and also Yingtai, one of the leading department store chains. And the reason why we made such investment is because we want the online, offline, the product can be synchronized, and the service could be synchronized. The more important thing is the data of the customers could be synchronized. For example, today on our platform, and for people buy some brands jackets, they can buy order online, but they can pick up in store, or they can stay at home and get the products. But if they are not satisfied, they want to return, they want to change, they can go back to the brand store offline to do this. All the orders are synchronized.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things, though, we figured out in India is us engineers, we sit in a glass building and keep coding and sometimes lose track of what consumers want. So one thing we've instituted is every quarter the senior management just goes out and meets consumers in small towns of India. I'll share a couple of interesting anecdotes out of that. So just recently, I'd gone to a small town city called Lucknow. Over there, I realized one of the biggest drivers of why women are buying online in India, and mostly fashion, is because they don't want to be caught dead going to a party wearing the same clothes as someone else. And that's one of their biggest drivers of coming and shopping online, because of the selection available. Then as we were talking to these consumers, they kept on saying, and this is where the offline insight has to match the online execution. They kept on saying, one pieces are really in fashion in our town. And we were scratching our heads, what's a one piece? And later when we asked, basically in that town, they call gowns, cocktail gowns, one pieces. And we had to actually go back and tweak our search algorithm so that when consumers search for one piece, we show cocktail gowns and not bikinis. So I think it's very important to understand, to have these local insights built into the platform, because you can't just transport a platform from outside and make it work very seamlessly.
So basically the business model, you're always changing. You cannot always be the same. It has to be flexible, it has to be fluid, in tune with what consumers in Asia want, because they're growing so fast and their tastes are constantly changing, right, Malina?
In Asia, now the cycle of planning is really, really short. We were talking also in the room before this meeting. I mean, these days, no one can actually see more than 10 years. And for us now, we used to make 5 years business plan, and now it's 3 years. And now actually every quarter, we are reviewing the plan and try to adjust to see where the customers are going and what do we need to do to really get the customers shopping with us.
Even in e-commerce in India, one of the key things we track as a company is preference drivers. Because all other things equal, unless you're investing behind the preference drivers for your platform, someone's going to eat your lunch. So 3 years ago, I used to keep saying Indian consumers are all about ABCD, astrology, Bollywood, cricket, and discounts. So discounts was a big driver. 2 years ago or then it became delivery. Then it became speed of refunds and returns. Now it's becoming who can offer me most next day delivery coverage. I know next will be who can offer me the most coverage of same day delivery. So I think the orbits are changing very, very rapidly in a country like India.
Don't go away. Up next.
The key is over the medium term that you've got steady growth and return value for the investments you've made upstream.
So, Kunal, when are you going to be profitable? Managing Asia will be right back. Let's talk about making money, because this is something that's close to all our hearts. When you sell to these Asian consumers, you need to make money. So, Kunal, when are you going to be profitable?
I equate our business very similar to telecom, where in India we need to invest in infrastructure, supply chain infrastructure, payments infrastructure, and overall technology infrastructure. The key is to make money at a unit level. So you're not losing money at a unit level, because then the more you grow, the more your loss will expand. As long as that's in check, the reason we are raising capital, the reason we get partners like Alibaba, like Temasek and others, is so that we can invest in infrastructure so we can continue to deliver best-in-class experience. I think we are probably at least maybe 3 years away when we feel we'll make enough money at a unit level that can pay for all of these infrastructure investments. But it's absolutely the right thing to do today.
You plan to get any more investors in?
You're always welcome.
So, is it getting harder to grow your margins? What are your margins like at P&G?
I mean, the margins yo-yo depending on a lot of external factors. The key is over the medium term that you've got steady growth and return value for the investments you've made upstream. And right now there's stability in the market. The foreign exchange, we had the Brexit discussion earlier.
Yes.
Dynamics have moved off Asia. And I think in the past 12 months, we've seen a level of stability on both the foreign exchange side as well as on the commodity side, which then allows us to focus more on what we do best, which is market.
I'm just trying to get a sense whether the margins are better offline or online. Daniel, could you shed some light?
Well, I would say it's difficult to compare these two. Because actually, for example, for Alibaba itself, actually we have great margin. And from our quarterly report, you can see that our EBITDA margin last quarter is over 40%. It's very high margin. But actually people will say, okay, a lot of merchants like Malina, like Seren and the P&G spend a lot of money on Alibaba, on your platform. And then this gives you a margin. But I would say, actually, a lot of merchants spend on platform, not only for the particular sales generated on this platform, but for the customer engagement, customer management, and retention. So that's why I always saying that online, offline should be integrated, and the whole business should be digitalized.
But you had me at 40%. Kunal, 40%? Is that something you're looking at?
Sounds like a good aspiration.
Are you anywhere near 40%?
I'm sure we'll get to it in due course. But right now, look, our focus is making sure not can we juice each extra basis point out of a seller. Our focus is how do we make sellers successful? Because most of the sellers on our platform are first-time online sellers. And we have to let them feel and believe that this is a great avenue to change their lives, which is still an early thought in their mind. I think we are much farther behind than the three companies here in that journey, but I'm sure we'll get there.
But you're confident you'll be around in the long term?
We should be.
On that note, I'd like to thank my distinguished panel for an insightful discussion. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.